It's ironic that this is the 16th chapter. 16 has always been my favorite number. In the quiet and peace that washed over my life after December 13th, 2016, I was sad, but no longer devastated. I had had about 4 years to get accustomed to the idea of being divorced, and now I was both divorced and free. I turned my focus toward my profession, my daughter, and of course toward continued attentiveness to the voice of the Lord. What I didn't know then was that this season of quiet, this careful guarded peace, was the doorway to the most frightening and healing kind of love I had ever known. I felt pressed to pray very specifically as I studied the Word. Following that inner sense, the anointing, I'll call it, as I told you before, I asked the Lord that if He desired to give me another husband, that He would bring that man to me. I told the Lord that I did not have the heart to actively search myself. I did have the peace to make it known on social media that I was single, and I did put a profile up on 2 dating sites. But as I began to scroll through matches, I almost felt sickened by the sea of overwhelm, so I stopped. My heart was so tender, and I had learned so much from the Lord. I knew that if He wanted a match for me, He knew how to bring that person to me, and I was very afraid of getting myself involved in something that was not God orchestrated. So I simply left an open profile on these 2 dating sites. Apart from that, I didn't even open the apps. I paid no fees. My profile was out there, so I left it at that and gave the rest to the Lord. There is a holy kind of waiting, one that doesn't mean giving up, but choosing rest, and I chose rest. I turned my focus toward my friends and enjoyed attending church and leaning into the learning and specialization of my nursing career. In the quiet of my cozy apartment, when Esther was in bed, I added to my prayer wall, and I became almost obsessed with praying through Ephesians 6, verses 10 through 20. I posted it on my wall, and for reasons I didn't yet understand, returning to it again and again was deeply healing to me. Looking back on that, I see now that I was strengthening myself internally, learning to stand guarded but not hardened. My prayers became even more specific, almost as if I sensed I would need a ready heart for something the Lord was preparing. I asked that if the Lord chose another husband for me, that He would love my daughter as His own, that He would desire to follow and serve the Lord with me, and most of all, that His heart would belong to me after God and no one else. I asked the Lord to decide whether this man would have his own children or not, and the most important prayer of all, that the Lord would place full, absolute, and unreserved love in my heart for His choice, so that my love would be pure, without reservation or residue. I didn't know if that kind of healing was possible, but I did know that God would never invite me into love without first making space for it. On February 1st, 2017, less than 2 months after my surrender, I received this message.
Hi Lorianne, I'm Corey. You popped up as a match and your profile intrigued me. Would you be into chatting sometime?
I could view his picture, but because I didn't have a paid subscription, I couldn't actually respond. A younger, less cautious version of me may have quickly paid and replied. Instead, I closed the app, closed my eyes, and bowed my head. After praying, I went forward with the demands of my day. I had not yet decided whether I would answer. I was waiting on God, waiting to see if the message would remain on my heart, or if it would dissolve into the busyness of life. It did not dissolve. No matter what I was doing, His face kept returning to my mind. Such kind eyes. Looking at his picture brought me an immediate sense of comfort. There was a softness there, and it called to the aching places in my heart. I couldn't ignore that. And so, on February the 4th, during one of Esther's dance classes in which I'd sit in the car waiting, I paid for the subscription so that I could reply. And here's what I said. Hi, Corey. Sorry for the late response. It's been a busy few days. Your profile also intrigued me. Yes, I would be into chatting sometime. I'm at the dance studio with my daughter right now, but I'll be home later tonight, around 8 p.m. I think. Well, there was no immediate reply, so I closed the app and continued on with life. It was the next day that his response came.
Hey, sorry, just saw this now, lol. 2 ships sailing past each other. I think that's the saying, but typing it out now looks wrong.
Somehow, that reply drew me in. I don't think that my reply was instant either. In fact, I think I made him wait a day. No worries, I get what you mean, smiley face. And just a few minutes later, he replied,
I came down with a bit of a bug yesterday, and my 7-year-old seems to have it too. So we're just couch buddies watching Star Wars today.
Looking back, I have to laugh. We were both being very intentional without trying to be. Oh, I know that story, and it's been going around. Well, this is a good sign. You like Star Wars. This gentle back and forth continued, each of us adding small details, offering tiny windows into our lives. And slowly, a connection formed, almost in a you've got mail kind of way. Of course, we did eventually begin sharing deeper things. Our professions, our histories, our parenting. We connected deeply as parents, both of us very clear about the priority of our children. And I was struck by him as an attentive and loving father. Hearing him speak about his children with real tenderness gave me a profound sense of safety. And his responses to my joy in motherhood was equally comforting. I shared with him how, when Esther was sick or anxious, I would lay on the floor beside her bed. That seemed to spark admiration in his heart. In fact, I think his very words were, "My heart is melting."
I love my kids so much.
He said that a few times. It was so sweet to hear his heart in his words. In fact, that single line reached me very deeply, and without realizing it, I began to care for him. He spoke of Nerf wars in the dark, movie nights, park outings, all the beautiful fatherhood moments that resonated with me as something I dreamed of sharing with someone. And I shared my nurturing routines, the small daily rhythms of motherhood. Our parenting values aligned naturally. There is a depth of love in the heart of a parent that only another parent can truly understand. And that understanding became part of the spark between us. So anyway, we texted like this for a couple of weeks. I dropped subtle hints about talking on the phone, and he skirted the idea. Something I didn't yet understand. I had no idea that the thought of a phone call with me made him incredibly nervous. There was a sweetness to this season, a gentle excitement, mutual curiosity, and subtle flirtation. We were both living the shock of parenting outside the family unit that we had envisioned, doing our best to give our children what they needed, while learning how to do it alone. We sent photos of our little families, and I'll never forget the picture he sent with him and his children. The love in his eyes and their love for him was unmistakable, and immediately I could see myself loving all of them. That wasn't something I forced or imagined. It was instant, and so I prayed over the emotion rising in my heart. Our texts began to feel like letters. I loved hearing about his day, and he listened attentively to mine as well. His responses were thoughtful, genuine, caring, and intentional, and I found myself thinking about him often. I found myself one day confessing to him that I was still a kid at heart, telling him that I collected Disney mugs, was a little Disney obsessed, and that I had taken Esther to Disneyland. Probably enjoyed it more than she did. Well, that is when he admitted that he was also a kid at heart, which was comforting, but I had no idea how true it was. Looking back, that may have been one of our truest confessions. Another confession we made to each other was how much we were smiling while we were texting each other. One day, he said,
"Remind me later to ask about the church conferences you sometimes attend. There are all these little branches in your text that I want to explore, but I forget. The mental post-it notes are piling up."
And later I replied to that, "I may be busy helping with homework here. I know what you mean about all the things we want to ask, and maybe we could chat on the phone one night." He would later tell me that this made his heart start racing. I think that was a sign. He did reply,
"Yes, or meet sometime in the not-too-distant future."
"That would work too," I replied. We left it there. A few days later, I told him, "I can hear your heart in your comments, and it makes me smile." And his reply made my heart race.
"That's very sweet, thank you. I've been smiling quite a bit myself while chatting with you."
Well, as my heart became more involved, I felt the need to ensure that he was truly free. A wounded heart, after all, is a cautious one. I asked very specifically about his previous marriage. Was it truly over? Was there any chance of reconciliation? His answers were clear and final and satisfactory. And he was also very gracious about my need to ask. Well, one week he asked about my schedule. "Why?" I asked.
"Because I'd like to meet you, silly."
That good-humored chastisement won me over even more. "I guess that might be why," I replied, but I didn't want to assume. "I'd like to meet you too." I teased him again about a phone call at that point, and he finally agreed. He would later tell me that he paced his kitchen the entire time we were on the phone, his heart pounding, stomach in knots. Well, our first meeting would be brief. Coffee at a Christian cafe near his home and Esther's dance studio, the house of James. We had found 1 hour since he was in quite the rush to meet in person. I took that as a good sign, a sign of his genuine interest. This meeting was going to have to be during Esther's dance class. It was competition season, and life was hectic. Well, I cannot explain the nerves that stole my breath as I got ready for that meeting. I turned to Esther and said, "Why do I feel like I can hardly breathe?" She laughed, and my 9-year-old future psychologist said, "I think you like him a lot, Mom." Then she said these words of wisdom, "Just breathe, Mom." Easier said than done. Still, I managed it one breath at a time, one prayer at a time. After dropping Esther off at dance, I drove to meet a man that I really liked, and I thought my heart might burst. I had a good feeling, maybe too good, and that was the problem. Fear of falling in love again is real. If you felt that fear, it doesn't mean that you're unhealed. It just means you remember the cost of love. I took deep breaths, prayed as I walked, and approached the doors of the cafe. And with each step, I felt the Lord steadying me. And then I saw him, and my nervous system quieted. He was handsome. His smile was kind and genuine, and something in his eyes spoke directly to my tender heart. "You are safe." Well, in the next chapter, I will tell you about that brief meeting and how it gently and very quickly changed my life.